I'd like to bring this meeting to order. If you could please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, please.
Jonathan Ramsey.
Here.
Marion Rosa.
Here.
Ken Demers.
Here.
Robert DeCina.
Here.
Anthony DeBona. Gary Lafferty.
Here.
Denise Russ.
Here.
Robert Ritalik. Rachel Ryan.
Here.
Moving on, public comment. If anyone would like to address the town council, please state your name and address.
Al Mickle, 95 Woodbine Avenue. One of my first topics will be public participation. I'm sure there's going to be public participation at the budget hearing, so I will hope to get answers there. I'm wondering if I can be allowed to have a PowerPoint presentation at the public hearing. The department heads can. I'm not sure why the public can't. So I'll be looking forward to that. Now, I noticed Lou Raz is having a blood drive, but I don't know when, I don't know where, or how to hang up. So if somebody can, right there, thank you. Okay, now, the presentations tonight are going to be on the senior center and the police station. And that's another reason why I think I would like public participation at the end of the meeting, because I'm sure I'm going to have questions after these presentations. So that's another reason why public participation at the end of the meeting is a good idea. That being not allowed, I'm wondering if there's going to be any other meetings about the proposed senior center and police department. If there is, I'd certainly like to be invited or know when and where it will be. Okay, the next one is consider the appointments of an auditor for the fiscal year. The charter says it should be done every year. The last contract was for 3 years, I believe. It was for the same people, King and King. I believe it's a very good idea to switch out every now and again to see what someone else has to say about our accounting system and how well we're doing it. It's always good to get another view, another viewpoint. So I would suggest that we find someone else besides King and King. And on top of that, did this have to go out for bidding? Or do we need a bid waiver for this? Or is it paid for already? I'm just wondering if we're going to appoint somebody, was this put out for bid? Oh, and a suggestion on the new update for the seasonal temporary wages. And specifically, Lisa's point about we spend a lot of time training these people and we want to have them come back, which is probably a very good idea. You don't want to spend a lot of time training them again. So my suggestion would be on the golf course seasonal maintenance, for the second one, year 2, you should probably change that to the same amount as year 3 for the skilled laborers. Because if they've already been trained, why not give them the $3 on the second year? So it's a way to keep trained people there. That's all I have. Thank you very much for your attention.
Anyone else?
Catherine Camera, 31 Cottage Place, Oakville. So last week I was going to attend the police commission meeting, so I looked up the agenda, and the agenda said it was an in-person and virtual listen-only mode. So I said, well, I guess I have to be there, because if I want to say anything, I have to be there in person. So I was kind of surprised when I got there and the meeting was taking place with the chairman over Zoom or whatever platform. So I would have to say that I don't think that that's appropriate, because if the public can't participate that way, I don't think that a meeting should be held that way. It's either we come here in front of everybody, or we participate by listen-only mode. So I was disappointed in that. But the other thing that I noticed was it appeared that this chairman had a health issue of some sort, because he needed help throughout the meeting to be able to keep track of the agenda. Now, I don't wish ill health on anybody, but for the public to feel that that they're getting the most out of their meetings, I think we should be assured that whoever's running them is okay. And I didn't feel that way. So I would really reach out to you to ask you to make sure that your commissions, committees, whatever, have healthy people on them who can run a meeting and can be in person if it's required to be in person. Because sometimes I don't feel that great, but if I need to go to a meeting, then I either go or I don't participate. There's also something on that agenda that said visitation of newer police department facilities. And when it got to that item on the agenda, I was a little bit confused on to what that actually meant. But I do know that the chairman was looking for 2 volunteers to be on a committee that the town manager has put together, and it has something to do with the police department up at Nova Scotia. Now, it's quite obvious you're just going to go plowing right ahead with that. And I think it's terrible that no one has reached out, that you've never had a public meeting, you've never let the public say anything about where the location of the police department would be and how they want to spend their tax dollars. Because it could be at 195 French Street. Yes, it would be a lot more expensive, and yes, they'd have to relocate for a while and come back, but you've never asked the public what they want to do. I have a real hard time with it being so far away from everything, and especially so far away from the schools, the high school. I mean, right now, it's right close to the high school. It's very close enough to the Swift Middle School. Now it's going to be like out in the middle of nowhere. So I just really think that it would have been the right thing to do is to put that out to the public and get their information on it. Because supposedly we've taken on new people to run the town, new people on the town council that want to be progressive, want to, be transparent. And I'm not seeing it. Because if we're going to return to the old days of having someone move out of town and then remotely hold the meetings and, that isn't even a taxpayer, but be the town council chair, that was ridiculous. And I hope we're not going to go back to something as foolish as that. And lastly, I just want to tell you that I've been reaching out to Mr. Spina to explain a light item on the Public Works budget, and I've sent 2 emails, I've left a voicemail, and I'm getting no response. If you want me to vote, or anybody to vote, I think when you put out a budget and there's something on it, if people have a question, I think it'd be transparent to answer their questions on that. So I would appreciate it if someone could nudge him to please respond to me. Thank you.
Anyone else? Seeing none, I'll end public comment. A motion for the minutes?
I'll make a motion to approve the regular meeting minutes of April 4th, 2022.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Under the chairman's report, as Al mentioned, there is a blood drive in honor of Lou Raza. It's set for Saturday, June 25th, 2022, 8 a.m. to 1 p.m. here at the town hall. We received these flyers. I'm assuming if the public wants a copy of this, where might they be able to find it? On the website? So, social media as well. Also, this as a reminder, we have a public hearing a week from tomorrow, Tuesday, April 26, 2022, 7 p.m. at Watertown High School regarding the budget. And that's it for my chairman's report. Now the town manager.
And members of the Watertown Town Council, in response to Ms. Kamira's request about Mr. Spina, I am aware of her question, and she will receive an answer shortly. So I am aware of that. The Watertown, our COVID is up again. We've had 35 cases over the last 2 weeks. 659 people have tested, which puts us at a 5.8% positivity rate based on the 100,000. It's not a huge uptick, but it is going upwards. Our noise ordinance is, again, as I spoke about it last meeting, is with Attorney Fitzpatrick, and he advised me that it's actually in the hands of the Department of Energy and Environmental Protection, and they're in the process of reviewing that noise ordinance. Wilson Street Bridge, there's no additional update at this point. Guernsey Town Road, we've actually acquired the property that we were waiting for. The state is repackaging that, and they'll be handing it back off to us so that we can get it out to bid for next year's 2023 build for that Guernsey Town by West Road. The Steelbrook Greenway Committee is still working to negotiate that scope of work with Western Sampson. We've been going back and forth to finalize that. The Naugatuck River Greenway, the town is in collaboration with NVCOG. NVCOG reached out to me recently to submit a request for funding to Congressman Hayes' office. So we're going to take care of that in the next couple of days and request funding for the architectural portion of that project in hopes to receive some money to fund that. Union negotiations are continuing. The Highway Police and Supervisors Union. Bobby Wills, a longtime senior bus driver, retired Thursday, April 14th from our senior center. We've already mentioned about Lou Raz's blood drive. Earth Day is coming up April 22nd, this Friday. Several businesses, including Martino's Pizza and Move It, Clean It, Clear It, have organized a litter pickup for Saturday. So they are working with Park and Rec Department to coordinate several locations for us to do litter pickup throughout town. Memorial Day Parade, just to remind you that Monday, May 30th will be the parade. It'll start at 10 a.m. and it'll go northbound towards Route 6 and 63, where it'll culminate at the Green. And regarding our ARPA committee, the ARPA committee finalized the survey. I've received the survey back from the company that created it for us, and we'll push it out starting tomorrow. So it'll go through social media, our website, and we'll get it into the Town Times in hopes of getting responses on how to use the remaining ARPA money. And that's all I have for tonight.
Thank you. Any other subcommittees, anything to report?
No.
Through the chair. We had a brief meeting last week, and there is one item on our under new business that we're going to discuss. That's it.
And moving on.
New business?
Yep.
I make a motion to add to the agenda item 9I, to approve a revision of a conservation easement for Lakeview Estates subdivision for lots 10, 11, and 12, which has been approved in accordance with the Wetland Agency and the Zoning Agency.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion on adding this to the agenda? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes. Next, we'll have presentation and discussion regarding the needs and site assessment for the Police and Community Center.
Good evening, and good evening to the members of the council, town manager, assistant town manager. I'm Brian Humes, representing Jakunski Humes Architects. We're based out of Berlin, Connecticut, And we have been working with the town of Watertown since 2019 to study and investigate potentials for a police department and a community center for the town of Watertown. I was asked to come tonight just to give you a brief overview of the work that we've been doing since 2019 and proposed work that we see still to do. When we were first engaged by the town, we had recommended a 4-step process, which was typically municipalities call this a pre-referendum services. We specialize in municipal construction, municipal facilities, and we specialize in public safety. My firm's been in business for about 30 years doing municipal work and specializing in municipal senior centers, community centers, and public safety facilities. So we have experience doing this. We have experience assisting many communities through a process of investigation. And the 4-step process that we had recommended was a space needs assessment as the first step, site assessments as the second step, schematic designs would be the third step, and then a professional cost estimate would be the 4th step. To date, the town of Watertown has taken the first 2 steps for both the police department and a planned community center. We do not have any authorization yet to take step 3 or step 4, but we have given proposals to the town. If you elect to proceed, that we would be engaged to do that 3rd step and 4th step. But let me back up about the first 2 steps that we have taken. As far as the space needs assessment, in February of 2020, we presented to the council a space needs assessment for the Watertown Police Department. This document was not done by our office in a vacuum. We had numerous meetings with the police department and police personnel to review and discuss what they felt the needs of the department were, not just for today, but for at least a 20-year growth potential for Watertown. We looked at statistics. We looked at growth potential within the departments for staffing. We looked at crime statistics and went 20 years in the past, and then saw current statistics, and then projected what Watertown's needs would be for the next 20 years. The facility, which is currently located at 195 French Street, has a total building gross square footage of 13,768 square feet. Within our presentation on February of 2020, we projected a proposed need of 25,330 square feet and recommended that it would take from 2 to 2.5 acres of buildable area to achieve that need. Within our contract with the town of Watertown, we always need approval to proceed to the next step. And so we did present this space needs assessment to the council, and we gained approval to then proceed to the next step, which would be a site assessment. In March of 2020, we concluded a site assessment just for the Watertown Police Department. We were given 2 sites to look at. One was the existing site at 195 French Street, and the second site was a site identified as 0 Nova Scotia Hill Road. I think most of us now recognize that to be the Buckingham Street site, while the assessor's map calls it 0 Nova Scotia Hill Road. It's a 17-acre parcel which is owned by the town of Watertown and accessed from Buckingham Street and Nova Scotia Hill Road. We completed an assessment and we gave an executive summary and a recommendation within that site assessment. We looked at the sites and we gave a site evaluation score to each of those sites. Out of a potential high of 100 points, we ranked the 195 French Street property a 73 out of 100. We scored the 0 Nova Scotia Hill Road site a 90 out of 100. And there's many factors that go into that scoring in that ranking. One is the lot size relative to the needs, acquisition costs, parking availability, site construction costs, location, access, and traffic, vehicular access and egress, utilities, visibility, neighborhood impact, public transportation routes, zoning restrictions, wetlands, floodplain, and then a category we just call convenience. Would it be convenient to put it there? Would it be easy? Would it have any obstacles? One of the reasons why the French Street property was ranked a 73 was due to the relative lot size and the availability of available land and site construction costs. If the 195 French Street property was utilized for a new facility, it would severely impact the operational needs of the facility during construction, to the point where we felt they would have to move off-site, find temporary quarters, and then relocate when a building was completed. The area to the rear of the existing building has a water course that goes through it, and it's all ledge and hard rock. The area of the parking, the current parking area, is not of size to fit the building that's being proposed. So it would probably be a combination of tearing down existing construction, rebuilding new construction, and then trying to find available parking space on land. It just had some obstacles and some related costs that would be far in excess of what was available at Nova Scotia Hill Road or Buckingham Street. That March 2020 report was also presented to the council. And at that point, a decision was made, because of the parcel being considered for a police facility, what about the needs of a community center? So this police department reports were set aside, and in June of 2021, we came back and presented to the council the space needs assessment for a Watertown community center. Now, there was a gap in time, March 2020 to June 2021. There was a thing called pandemic that did get in the way of some of the work that we were doing. Availability of getting this report completed. But this also was not done in a vacuum. This was done with careful consideration, coordinated through Lisa Carew, the Director of the Human, Social, and Leisure Services. She brought additional resources to the table to have conversations. And it was a similar process that we undertook with the police department, but we are now talking about the needs of a community center. Needs were discussed, they were debated. We tried to conclude with the town staff what is a need and what's versus a want. Square footages were adjusted, and in the end, the conclusion was, if Watertown was to undertake a new community center, the recommended need was 32,585 square feet, with a minimum buildable area of 3.5 to 4 acres. So the document, that's just a summary of the document. The document that we produced was 17 pages in length, but we also presented this to the council because we needed approval at that time to take the next step in the development of a community center, and that would be a site assessment. In March of 2022, the fourth document that we presented, was a site assessment, but now you see two patches on the cover, because what we did for this report was we labeled this site assessment for a new community center and police headquarters. So now we're evaluating sites for the use of both functions for the town of Watertown. For the site assessment, we were again given the property at 0 Nova Scotia Hill Road to assess how that site would not only meet the space needs of the community center, but coupled with the space needs of the police department. So we had working knowledge of what the needs were, not only of the building, but what the site needs and site requirements were for both proposed facilities. We combined that knowledge, and then we applied that knowledge again to the 0 Nova Scotia Hill property. We again completed a scoring and ranking of that site, and just like we summarized for the police department only, we scored that property, again, a 90 out of 100. We had similar rankings because the site size at 17 acres is suitable to meet the needs of both facilities. There was some other benefits to the site when we looked at it now for a community center function that both the town staff and the adjacencies identified with the Veterans Memorial Park brought some more benefits to utilizing this site for a community center. Some of the site features that were requested in the space needs assessment for the community center had to do with outdoor recreational aspects of a community center. Had a water feature, had outdoor play fields, it had outdoor pickleball courts, so they were combining outdoor recreational in addition to a community garden area, shelter building, and creating another potential entry point to Veterans Memorial Park. When we evaluated the site, we produced a site plan, which you see on the monitor, you see on the board. And the site plan is very preliminary. It's not concluding what the floor plans of these buildings would be. All we're indicating on the proposed site plan is all we know of a site assessment, meaning required parking, required building size. For the police department, we knew there was security concerns between staff areas and public areas. We knew that we would like to provide at least 2 ways off the site for emergency egress and access for the police department. So we knew these components, and we tried to incorporate them into the plan. Now, since completing the space needs assessments for both of these buildings, we have been notified from the town of Watertown of an additional requirement for the site, and that would be a desire to house at least 1 piece of fire apparatus on this site if it's developed for a police department. That's not included in any of our documents, but that information was transferred to us through the town manager. And that was also accommodated onto the site plan within an outbuilding which is located behind the police department. An outbuilding and storage outbuilding was part of the needs assessment for the police department, and just adding fire apparatus to that outbuilding we felt would not impact our evaluation of this site in any way. But I just wanted to point out that that was also brought to our attention and considered in the site plan. So what we've shown is a simplistic conceptual plan for the potential use of this property is bringing vehicles onto the site off of Buckingham Street. It's directly across from, I think it's called Pheasant Trail, which is a cross street on Buckingham. Bringing vehicles onto the site, the first building that they would encounter on the site would be the police department. There would be an entrance for police staff and police vehicles only off of the entry drive closest to Buckingham. Public would be directed continuing onto the site to a centralized public parking area where they could have public access to the entrance to the police department, main entrance to the community center, and also access to the outdoor recreational areas. We've shown that there's a potential to continue that access drive into the Veterans Memorial Park, creating another entry piece or entry point, access and egress point from the park, so it would relieve traffic or maintain the Nova Scotia Hill Road access as restricted access or staff access only, and have public access be off the new entry drive. We did indicate gates would be there for after-hours use, so the park could be closed off for after-hours use, where you could have access to the police department 24/7, 365. There is an adjacent condo association established adjacent. That would be unchanged. There is a potential for roadway networks to connect, but we have not indicated that in our concept plan. So we have not impacted, other than site clearing and site development, we haven't changed any concepts or existing plans within the condo association. There are some neighboring residential properties on Nova Scotia Hill Road that we would continue to try to buffer from new development. And we've located the police department the furthest from those residential properties. As I said, I did indicate another egress access point for emergency vehicles and staff only onto Nova Scotia Hill. And this could be further discussed, whether this is emergency use only or use by the police department as needed. So a lot of things need to be discussed. A lot of things really should be discussed about this concept plan. I know it's new to you. I'd encourage your comments as well as what we've received already from either the town manager or the police department or recreation. I think this is definitely a project which is a game changer for Watertown. It's a big development which is going to provide some much needed new space and improved working conditions for both of these functions. But we can't proceed to the next phase without your input, your encouragement, or your criticism. We are here working for you. The next stage, as I said earlier, the next step in this is if you want to take the step to get to schematic design. Schematic design, we would then come back and show you floor plans, elevations, more details about the buildings, because all I can tell you right now is the shape. And the shape will again change. I think the locations are accurate, but I think the shapes can change, the site plan can change. And we can accommodate, I believe, any of the comments that you have on this site, or if there are other sites that are to be considered in town, we'll take direction from you as to what that might be. So I think that just it briefly explains how we've worked through the process since 2019. There's still work to be done. There's still a lot of plan development that has to be accomplished. Nothing in here is cast in stone at this point. So with that, I turn it back to you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you for the information. Just as a reminder that this is just discussion, presentation. There is no vote on what you're seeing now. It's just to kind of gain feedback on what was just presented to us. And just to summarize, kind of the lower left-hand corner of the image on the screen, that's Buckingham Street. You have a nice little curved driveway. The first driveway on the left, it would be the emergency only or the police entrance. The public would then continue on to the main parking lot where they could access the police department and the community center. If they continue straight, that will In theory, we'll have a gate that would separate the park, and that would get you another entrance to Veterans Memorial Park. One question or comment I did have is, what part of the park are we seeing there? Do you know what field, what parking area that is? Is that right near that first soccer field? Is that where it's sitting?
It is. There's an existing parking lot there now. What it's showing there is the entry point comes into an existing parking lot location. So the loop road is a one-way road at that direction. So the one-way is going counterclockwise. So the entry would link up to that counterclockwise circulation, but there's also a potential just at that location to enter a parking lot and park. The current configuration of that parking lot is an angled parking configuration. And the angles actually are going in the wrong direction for this development to happen. So what we've indicated here is those angled parking spaces would be converted to 90-degree parking spaces. So cars could enter and park. If you're entering from the right-hand side, you'd be able to go through the parking lot, park, come out on the top side, and then enter, again, that loop in a counterclockwise location, which would then line you up to get to an exit point back to the community center. So it really works if you don't want to get onto the Veterans Memorial Park and have to make the entire loop around the park. You can just come into the park, park at that parking location, and then exit back out.
Thank you. Any questions? Yep.
Through the chair. I'm wondering if you gave any consideration to having the buildings be attached in some sort of way.
I think tonight it's a good time to listen to your questions. I am planning on coming back on May 2nd and then follow up with any questions that I have tonight. I don't know if you want me to try to answer questions as they come or just compile questions and then come back on May 2nd and then give you a presentation about all of the summary answers. Because some of these I might not be able to answer tonight, some I'm...
Yeah, anything you're not able to
I may.
answer, you could summarize for another presentation.
There's no reason why we could not combine them. We just have to maintain parking and access to both and then have a wise use of the lot. There is some topography on this site that we have to be concerned about. While it looks like it's a flat level site, it's not. The reason that the Buckingham entry drive takes a little bend and a curve is because you're going up grade. The way the police department was proposed here is the police department, because of the grade, was being proposed as a 2-story building. So coming in from the staff entry point, that first entry drive, then you could be entering into the lower level of the police department. That could be Sallyport entrance, vehicle storage, garage, all of the prisoner processing would be at a lower level, while from the public side, the public access side, you would be accessing the upper floor, more of the public lobby, public meeting spaces. Police departments very commonly have that separation between floors, where you have more of the staff areas on your first floor and all locker rooms, patrol, prisoner processing support on the lower level. And this really works because of the topography here. I know that the community center is not requesting a 2-story building just because of its function, use, activity level. So the desire of the community center is to make a 1-story building. So I just point that out, and you can't tell that from looking at this site plan. So I just wanted to add that input for the site.
No one else? Gary?
Yeah, that's one of the questions I was going to ask, is if the buildings were going to be on a slab or if they're going to have a basement underneath them or not.
Yeah, the police department would be more of your walkout basement concept with the basement buried into the slope.
And on the site here, if you were going to put a fire department building up there, where would it go?
It would just be storage of one apparatus is what I've been told. I'm not anticipating anything more than that, so it would be a garage bay, which is all that I've been anticipating for a fire apparatus. So one bay would be within a storage outbuilding at the rear side of the police department. Being at that location, it's restricted access only for staff, and this would be responders. But from that location, the fire apparatus would have two means of egress off this site. So it's not only coming back to Buckingham, but they would have access then onto Nova Scotia from a secondary egress access point.
So it'll be more like in a location like where the cell tower is there? Or-
That is correct.
Okay.
You see a tower structure, yes. And there's no cell tower being proposed. This is just a public safety radio communications.
Through the chair, Mr. Humes, we sat through one of your presentations before. I was able to read the site assessments, the workups, very explanatory tonight. The executive summary in the site assessment for a new community center and police headquarters explains it all. This is the second time I've read it. There is a need for both. It's not particularly, let's say, in a campus setting. They're going to be separate but equal for the benefit of the townspeople. In my previous life as a public servant, before I was able to sit on the council, I visited some of the facilities made up by your firm throughout the state, and there is a dire need not only for a new police department. In my conversations with Chief Berniger and the town manager, we're going through COLEA accreditation for 2025, which is only 3 years away, whereby it's mandated that there has to be a new facility. The facility is out of date. It's for the 80s, 40 years ago. I was a young patrolman looking forward to moving out of the bowels of the former town hall, the basement, the dungeon-type cell facilities, and we went into 195 Front Street that served its purpose for 40 years, but it's been upgraded, remodeled many times because of it houses now communications and police services. And as for the center, the community center, there's a big need. As we've sat through budget presentations before by Mrs. Carew and Chairman of Park and Rec, Dunstan, there is a dire need for expanding the services, not only to the youth in town, but to our elderly population. And looking at this, I fully endorse both. Thank you.
Thank you. You did bring up the accreditation. Police accountability bill that was passed within the state of Connecticut requires police facilities within the state to be accredited. You do have some liabilities at your current facility, as you're aware. And while a new facility doesn't guarantee accreditation, it does support the procedures and requirements of accreditation. So while the new building would make it easier for accreditation to be achieved for Watertown. Yeah.
Through the chair. This accreditation is very important because it prevents liability incurred by the town in the performance of the duties of the officers under the command of the chief. Thank you.
Anyone else?
I just have one.
Can you turn your mic on? Turn your mic on.
Safety purposes, since it's going to be connected to the Veterans Park, what kind of protection is going to be around there to stop the children from skateboarding and everything else in that area? I know during the day, the police are in and out. Senior center, community center is going to be going. But I mean, after hours and later in the afternoon, and the soccer field, is there anything that's going to be stopping them from running? I know.
I was going to say, there's nothing. Yeah, no different than now. They wouldn't be able to gain access by car, so they would still have to walk through there. I could also only assume that at the police department and community center, there's probably will be cameras that will be able to see people coming and going, not by car. But as far as what people do, let's say 2 in the morning, I'd say there's no more or less risk with what's being presented now versus what we currently have in town.
Okay,
I
thank you.
think the location of the police department on this site next to the community center at an entrance location to the park does add security, an overall security blanket to the site. There will be surveillance, as the chair mentioned, so there's surveillance. This police department provides that a level of security just in its presence. If this becomes the main entrance to the park, then you'd have to pass by the police department and its surveillance to get to the park at regular business hours, and they can be a gatekeeper for the park for after hours. Just as an aside, we have another project which is very similar in nature for the town of Windsor Locks. We have designed a new police facility and a new senior center on one parcel for the town of Windsor Locks. And they just went through a referendum on March 3rd. There was a lot of discussion within the community about safety and security. And the seniors came out completely endorsing the concept of putting a police department next to a senior center. Now, this one being a community center, a lot of those same arguments would pertain. But in Windsor Locks, the seniors came out in 100% endorsement of this concept because it does provide security for their property, it provides security for their building, but it also provides an access point for emergency response and an overseeing of the outdoor recreation areas on that site. They've even brought up circumstances where at the current senior center, they just had all their vans vandalized because of catalytic converters. They're pretty confident that that would not have happened if this was on the same site as the police department. So there's a lot of benefits that Windsor Locks saw in co-locating these two uses on one site. Now, for Windsor Locks, it just passed referendum on a 2-to-1 vote. So both of the facilities are going forward, and it was based on the same concepts that you're seeing here for the town of Watertown. So it's just interesting to note that I have two communities doing similar concepts on similar sites to co-locate. It's only happening because both of the communities have needs in both of those areas. We've co-located police and fire, we've co-located police and other uses, but it just happens that co-locating police with senior community centers has been assessed as a positive for the overall security, and I think that would lend itself to the same conversation for the park for similar reasons.
Thank you.
I noticed on the police department, a good portion of it looks like it's almost like a flat roof. I thought we were trying to do away with, flat roofs in town here or whatever.
Again, the design has not been completed on that.
Yep.
In concept, I can understand what you're saying. We can move forward with the plan without flat roofs. But in the rear of the site, that's where the concept was to be for sheltered parking. So as I said, there was a lower level for Sallyport entrance, sheltered parking for fleet vehicles. And it was, that was the concept for that back area.
Okay.
But no designs have been drawn other than what you see on this site plan.
I would just, quick question through the chair. The playground, that if you're looking from Buckingham, on the left-hand side of the parking lot, is there any way you can get that closer to the community center and a little further away from what I believe would be police parking?
Is that at the end of the parking area?
Yeah, whatever that is, it looks like it's gonna attract young kids
That's a water feature that was requested in the space needs assessment as a splash pad.
Right.
There was discussion on whether there was a pool involved with the project, no pool. It was elected to go with this concept for water feature. It would be good weather use only, be some pavilions associated with it. Yes, that would be a water feature.
Right, so that's a water feature, and this is where the cars would come out of the spots and cruise through here?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Alrighty, thank you.
We can look at that.
Any other questions or discussions? The only thing I want to add is I definitely like the idea of having both community center and police department on one property, as well as the community center being close to Veterans Park, because, yeah, you can do a lot in a building, you got, whatever activities are outside the building, but having that connection to the park definitely helps. Also, there tends to be a number of larger events at Veterans Park where there's off-site parking, buses are needed to transport people from like John Trumbull to the park. Here, this gives 250-plus parking spots to the public, which will definitely help with any type of overflow for those types of events.
There was a sidewalk network that's shown connecting this complex into the park. That would be in addition to bicycles and vehicles. Now, there is water course and there is wetlands in the area. We have not mapped any of that. This is just a high-level view, but this would have to get more review by conservation, impact to wetlands to make that entry drive achievable. So there are other things that would come with that entry drive that would have to get town approvals.
Any other further discussion? All I want to add is for the council members, if you do come up with any additional questions as far as the site, not the buildings themselves, but the site, either let me or maybe Mark know so that the next time there's a presentation, any questions we do have, they could have nice detailed answers. And I think that is it. And your homework assignment is one building versus two buildings, advantages and disadvantages.
Excellent. And I'll be back on May 2nd, and I'll follow up with that and anything else that's been forwarded to our direction.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
I thank you.
Okay. Moving on.
I move to approve the resolution appointing King & King as auditors for the fiscal year 2021-2022 audit.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? And Sue, this is year 3 of our contract with them?
Correct, this is year 3 of the contract, correct.
And the price was set up back when we...
It was approved for a 3-year contract, this is the last year.
Yep.
Exactly.
Any other discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I make a motion to approve a bid waiver for pavement markings to be purchased through Atlantic Pavement Marking for an amount not to exceed $24,227.04.
Second.
Is there any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I move to approve the resolution in support of fair housing in Watertown.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Just to note that annually, we review our policy and kind of re-vote on it at the town council level, reaffirming the information in it. Seeing no other discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I move to approve the modification of the part-time, seasonal, and temporary employees' wage schedule for part-time seasonal lifeguards, skilled laborers, and golf course seasonal maintenance personnel as presented.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussions on this? All in favor, please say aye. Oh, sorry.
That's okay. Okay, I just have a couple of questions. What is the minimum wage that you want to raise them up this amount of money? You said that they're all making minimum wage, right?
On the chart that you have,
On this?
Lisa Carew, Park and Rec, on that chart, everybody's minimum wage and then off of minimum wage.
Right, but what is their minimum wage?
So that's the
right?
state's minimum wage.
Right now, it's 13. It's going to go up to 14
Right.
this
So
summer, and then it goes up to 15.
So some of these people will be making, say, 14, almost $18 an hour.
Correct.
Okay,
And we can't get people to work right now. It's next to impossible to get help. So we couldn't open Sylvan Lake last year because we didn't have enough lifeguards.
and then on the first page, Lisa, you have labor or PW and parks. Oh, that's, and never mind, that was my mistake, I apologize. It's on. No, it's on. Okay, and here on the second page, not the first, you got the laborer, PW and parks, 50 for an entry level and $1 for second year people.
I don't know which one you're looking at, Denise.
Seasonal employees, MEO, second page.
Is it a chart? Are you looking at the chart?
Chart.
Okay, sorry. What's the question?
The question is, it's entry level, they're getting 50 cents, and then 2 year, they're getting $1. But on the first page, entry level, they're not getting anything for the same, looks like the same position.
I'm not following where you are at all.
Can
What
I
we were
show
trying
her
to do
where
is,
I am? Or no? Okay.
we tried to break it out, like the skilled labor would be like someone, maybe they came from the highway department. We have some, people don't leave. They might retire, but they'll come back and they'll work for us. Is that what you're asking?
Right, they look like it's the same exact description, but on the front page, they're not getting anything.
Okay, I'm not,
Yeah, one is the current and one is the proposed.
happening now,
Okay.
and this is what she's.
the one that has red on it is the proposed.
Okay.
And the other one is existing that you voted on in December of this past year.
Okay.
So the new one, I'm sorry, I couldn't follow you, I'm sorry. The new one is the one that has a lot of red on it, and that's the proposals.
Yes.
That's in red.
Second, okay.
Any further questions or discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I'm
Abstention?
opposed.
Okay, and abstentions, motion passes.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I move to approve the request from Park and Recreation Commission to name the first ball field known as Softball Field Number 1 at Veterans Memorial Park in memory of George J. Palumba.
Is there a second?
Second.
And this was already approved by the Park and Rec. Yep. Any questions or comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing an appropriation from the general fund in the amount of $1,510 for tax refunds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion passes.
I move to approve the resolution authorizing the tax refunds.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions? Motion to adjourn?
No. Added item.
Oh, sorry, we had an item. Sorry about that.
I
That's what
move,
happens when I give you my motions.
I move to approve the revision of a conservation easement for Lakeview Estates subdivision.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
That motion also allows the town manager to release the old one and substitute the new one.
Okay.
I can't answer that because that wasn't what we were, yeah, all right, wait a minute. To do what?
Substitute the new conservation
Conservation,
restriction and
release the old one to whom? To where? To what?
just gets released from the land.
Yeah.
Okay. I'll make an amendment that we release the current and old conservation plan and approve the new, the substitute and new conservation plan for the records,
And is there a second?
for the town records.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Please continue. Yep.
You need a better explanation of what is happening. We're prepared to do that.
Yes, please.
Yeah, a little
Yep.
bit.
Chairman, members of the council and staff, town manager. My name is Franklin Pillacy, 235 Main Street, Watertown, and Giuseppe Paletta is also present. He is the owner of this subdivision. And a conservation restriction by nature is a permanent restriction that you put on real estate that sort of dedicates that property forever as open space and not to be developed. And typically, it's given in areas of special concern and so forth. In this case, a conservation restriction was provided at the time the subdivision was approved, but as some of these lots have been developed, it appeared that it would make a lot more sense for both the lot owners and the town of Watertown to substitute some area for area. And basically, the purpose of this is to provide a little bit more room in some of the backyards of these lots and give more open space closer to Echo Lake. But a conservation restriction is first endorsed by the Wetlands Agency and then the Planning and Zoning Commission. But by statute, it also is in favor of the town of Watertown itself, so that if a modification is granted, it has to be also approved by Wetlands, Planning and Zoning, and the town council. This conservation restriction has been approved by the Wetlands Agency. It has been approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission. And the final step here is to substitute the new conservation restriction areas as shown on the maps and to authorize the town manager to release the existing conservation restriction.
Any questions or comments? So, in summary, it's instead of having one part of the land being the open space, now we're just swapping it with a different part of that land.
Yes, some of the land that's also restricted, that's now restricted, will be released, and a slightly larger area will be substituted. I can bring this map up here. This is a bigger version. Don't mean to throw this around here.
Yeah, I can see.
The yellow is the old. Yellow is old. Past orange is basically it, but the yellow portion is coming off. This is the,
So this is current
this is existing right now, this here.
and all, and this, okay, so this is coming off, this
This
is,
is being added, and this is being taken this back.
yeah, makes sense.
Yeah,
Okay.
not, it's a bigger area closer to the lake, exactly.
Any further discussion?
Thank you.
See, any further discussion or questions? So the swapping different pieces of land for open space, already approved by Planning and Zoning
Wetlands, yeah.
and Wetlands, yes. Seeing no other discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Abstentions?
I'm going to abstain.
One abstention? Motion passes.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Have a good night.
Recording stopped.
Save that for the next guy.